What's going on, everybody? Today is Friday, June 5th. It's the Feather Pen. Welcome back. And I want to talk a little bit again about banking systems. Will be part number 2. I highly recommend going back to banking systems number 1, watching it so that you kind of know where we've been. But I'll recap and we'll drill down into the information a little bit and then talk about some implications for your family and my family. Again, the Feather Pen exists to be an alternative news media source so that we can brainstorm around the political and social ideas of our day. And just as a reminder, this is a republic, and so a republic only works for those who are well informed, who are well educated, and so that's what we're doing here at the Feather Pen, just trying to bring some education so that we know exactly the world we live in and the way that it functions. And so hopefully that kind of information can be empowering and help us move forward together as we kind of think about what kind of things are good for us and for our kids coming up. And so again, real quick to recap 4 things, and we talked about the Federal Reserve System. Number 1, we learned that the Federal Reserve was created in 1912. The idea around it, it was created on an island called Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia by politicians and bankers, and so they did that in secrecy. Number 2, we know that the president does appoint a Federal Reserve chair, woman or chairman, and he's given a list of names to choose from, and that's okay until you get to number 3, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, and the system itself is not a part of the federal government. Again, that's very, very noteworthy that though the two systems, although they use the word federal, are not conjoined and are not attached at all. And number 4, we have a fiat currency, FIAT. It means it shall be, and so it's based off of supply and demand rather than being based off of a commodity being regulated, having a value. And so in 1933, FDR took us off the gold standard. It was so that we can pump more money into the economy. As you know, in that era, that's the Great Depression era and things like that. And so there are those who believe that we should go back on the gold standard, attach the value to a commodity. Those who really like the system of the fiat system that we have now. And again, our thing is just, hey man, let you be educated. We want you to know what's going on. And so 5.5 years ago, I had no idea how my money got to me. And so it was a surprise to me to learn, hey man, our money's not backed by anything. And so if we're drilling down into the information, basically what we're saying is we have a central private bank who loans our government money at interest, and whose chief, whose leader, and the system itself is not accountable to any federal agency or to, more importantly, we the people. And so again, just to recap, we have a small group of people who deal with our monetary policy, and they are not accountable to any federal government agency. And so try this one on for size, particularly if you really hold to that the president is the highest office in the land. Then you're really saying the president will appoint a person who then in turn is not even accountable to him, which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe there are reasons for that, but that just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So we are trusting every day that a small group of bankers have our best interests at hand. I mean, we're talking to the whole nation and countries, because the dollar is the world reserve currency. So that's a whole lot of faith, a whole lot of trust. If history proves anything, that's probably dangerous. We could nod our head and say yes with me. And so let's talk about some of those implications. Again, legally, I'm not quite sure. I think where I would stand is to say that, hey, the intent and purpose was to give this responsibility. We delegated this responsibility to Congress. That's the way it's set up in our Constitution. It's the power of the purse, the power of commerce, coinage, all those type of things are given to the Congress. And in the Congress, we have a checks and balance system. Well, if you turn that over to a central private bank, which was done in 1913, again, the ideas come in 1912, the Federal Reserve Act, they had to pass legislation. If You see, there had to be some legislation to get that power away from the Congress and to a central bank. And so I would probably say, man, that doesn't really seem to be in step with the letter of the law, and it surely doesn't seem to be in step with the spirit of the law. You're dealing with a group of individuals who set up this country, but the people who come over, they understood a central bank. They had a central bank in England. They had this oppressive, what became a very oppressive system to them, and so it's hard for me to square that, even in the spirit of and the intent of what they thought. Hey, yeah, let's give it to a group of people. I think it might have been Thomas Jefferson he said, man, a central bank is more dangerous than standing army. So they had this kind of idea because they had these experiences, and those experiences were passed down to our framers and everything. So, man, I don't know, some legalities, I would say it definitely is worth looking into. That doesn't seem to jive with the intent and the purpose of where we were going. Number two, man, we have to talk about this idea of the fiat currency, being able to print money out of nothing and not have it backed by a commodity. Let's put it in layman's terms. iPhone is probably the next phone company that's going to put out the next best thing when it comes to the phone wars, right? It's this iPhone 6. And so let's pretend Apple comes and says, hey, we are no longer in the phone business. We will no longer make smartphones. The iPhone 6 is the last one. And oh, by the way, we're only going to put 400 of these babies out in the world. Okay, so you and I know in a broad economic sense that price of that iPhone 6 is going to be through the roof, because you understand something. You understand that, man, if something is rare, something is precious, and we're talking about a commodity, a service, or a product, if it's not common, readily available to everybody, then you understand that the price of it then goes up. And so that's an economic principle. So the converse also is true. The more of a product, commodity, or service that you have, the price goes down, which is some of the beauty of having a capitalistic society, is that you've got a number of people in the market providing a service, and so the price is driven down for you and I. Well, let's then take that, let's just paint with a broad brush and bring it to our money system. Again, there are many things that drive the market and all these kind of things. So if you're a financial guru, I'm not saying this is the end all be all, so keep your hat on there. But if we just simply apply that and say, well, hey, if you have the ability to just continue to pump money into the economy, and the dollar is the world reserve currency, well, what we've seen, and you can look it up for yourself, the dollar is decreased in value. It's because of inflation. And so essentially what inflation does, it's a hidden tax, which means in a genius way, that system takes money from your wallet and your bank account and my bank account without us even seeing it, noticing it, whatever. Why? Because your purchasing power has dropped because of inflation. It makes taxes, it's a hidden tax, it makes things go up. So for instance, when I was a youngin' coming up and I was able to go to the corner store for the first time, Snickers bar, 45 cents. Same Snickers bar today, 98 cents. Why? It's the same chocolate, same peanuts, same caramel, same everything, right? They're not giving me anything new. Well, if the dollar is less for me, the dollar is less for the manufacturer and the producer of the Snickers, which means it costs him more to make one Snickers bar. So in order for him to make a profit for himself, keep people employed, and help the economy, he has to pass that cost off to the consumer so that he can make a profit and stay in business. And so we see, and it's not just Snickers, milk, eggs, bread, all of these things contributing, again, painting with the broad brush, not saying that the Federal Reserve System is the worst thing and it's the enemy and it's, whatever. I'm just simply giving you information so that you are empowered, because it does make a difference. So just to recap, we have a central private bank. Loans our government money that we have to pay back at interest. This is a small group of collective bankers who we're hoping have our best interests at hand. This fiat system, the constitutionality of it is definitely, it's questionable, because again, if the power is delegated to you, how much right do you have to take that away without then contacting with the people who gave you the power in the first place? And you have the people escaping a central bank knowing the evils that it could produce. And so inflation is driven up and purchasing power of your money is lessened. We're not necessarily discussing the great things about the Federal Reserve System. Maybe there are some very key things, some very key reasons why we have it. I'm just simply trying to shape and frame some information that you may not have known that's very important. Because the last thing I'll talk about is it seems odd to me that this is the first time, when at least that I've heard of, when Ron Paul came on the scene, that we would audit the Federal Reserve. Because it's never had an audit up until it hasn't even happened yet. But there are bills in the House and the Senate to audit the Federal Reserve, right? So that's kind of strange to me, because that means people have continued to perpetuate a cycle where our money is not really reined in by anything. We continue to spend. There seems that there should be something in place, some regulatory authority over this thing, so we don't go crazy. Because what we're seeing is our dollar has been dramatically devalued. But these people keep coming on TV talking about the government's going to spend money on this and the government's going to spend money on that, and all the while the dollar keeps going down. Your purchasing power of what you can spend with your money goes down because the price of all the goods and services go up, and that has to, you have to realize that some of that has to do with the fact of our banking system. It is not tied to a commodity, which if it was tied to a commodity, you would have to say, here's how much we can put in circulation and no more, because this is how much the commodity, like a gold per se, is worth. There were some problems with that system. I'm not necessarily saying either or. I'm just saying, hey, this is what I mean by why I chose to do the feather pen, because it's got to be up to us to be able to talk about these issues that are going to be facing our country, because we are robbing our children blind, and at some point the next generation will rise up and call us unethical and calls us greedy and call us all these things, because nobody has bothered to really put heads together and figure this thing out on a serious basis. So I really appreciate Ron Paul and his son Rand Paul now, and those who are there in the Congress and the Senate saying, yeah, man, this is an issue. You guys are doing your own thing. You're a private thing, and we don't even know what's going on here. So it is very noteworthy, because now when I see, knowing what I know, when I'm watching debates and I'm doing this, I'm listening in to see how much this president or this senator or this representative or this city councilman or whoever this is, I'm listening to see how much you want to spend, because I've got to be responsible enough to say, hey man, I cannot rob my son. I can't rob the next generation. I can't rob you because dollar's worth less. And so I hope that helps you get somewhat of an understanding of where our money comes from and how it all works, and obviously some of the detriments of it. And again, if you want to read a book about it, it's called The Creature of Jekyll Island. If you want to read a historical account of the Federal Reserve System, you can do that. But again, history would tell us that there have been those, and it's on record stuff, there have been those who have been quote unquote behind the scenes, pulling strings, orchestrating, making sure that certain events happen so that there is a favorable outcome. And so it's not beyond saying, hey man, is this something that's been done on purpose? Is this people who come into office and nobody will bother to look at how we deal with this thing? We'll just continue to go on as business as usual. What is that all about? And so hoping that you feel empowered by that, man, I would definitely contact your representative and your senator and say, I'm with you please say yes to auditing the Federal Reserve System. That's something that you can literally do. Again, this is a republic, which means those individuals are public servants and they work for you. And so you have every right to say, hey, this is what we need to get done in our country. And I think it's about time for us to begin to have discussions like this. Hey man, this is what we need right now. This may not be the most, the best, solution, or it may not be the most long-term solution, but for right now, we need to do some certain things that will put us in a position where we can then talk and say, okay, we're in the clear. Now let's go on and talk about how we move forward. But for right now, there are some issues that we have. Low income or just affordable housing. Anything dealing with money, you're going to be affected by this inflation. You're going to have prices and goods up and dollars down because of the system. Again, many other reasons, but this is part of the contributor. So you have to begin to take some responsibility and say, wait a minute, man, I need you. I need to live here, and so I need you guys to begin to put some things together. And that's the kind of conversations that you have with your with the people that work for you. And so hope this helps. This has been a great topic. I want to come back in the next episode and talk about this false left-right paradigm, what I see. Again, this conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, false kind of narrative that I see going on, and how that contributes to the psyche of our country, and how that even keeps you and I polarized on things. And so hope to see you in the next one. It's been great. Peace.